Now, I've been doing this MMT stuff a long time. It's going on 15 years. Okay, 15 years when I first stumbled onto MMT, and then educating myself on MMT, and then ultimately going on to teach other people MMT, using MMT, and not only in my trading and investing, but also, when I write articles and of course on these videos. So 15 years. Prior to that, I was like everybody else. I was completely misinformed. In fact, I have old videos of myself. I used to go on CNBC a lot back in the 90s. And, I'd say things like, we're broke as a nation, we're bankrupt, nobody's going to lend us any money, interest rates are going to spike through the roof, we're going to have hyperinflation, the stock market's going to crash, the dollar's going to collapse. I mean, if you saw me on these appearances, you'd think it was Schiff inside my body who was doing the talking, but it was me. All right, and I know that many of you who have come on to MMT and have come to understand it, you have experienced many of the same frustrations that I've experienced when talking to people who are of the belief system that is really out of paradigm. The belief system, the stuff I just mentioned. And it is maddening, and it is very, very frustrating trying to talk to these people, whether it's your relatives or colleagues at work or your friends, trying to talk to them and convince them of the reality of what's going on. Like, we understand the truth. We understand the true nature of the monetary system. These people are operating on a belief system that is totally incongruent with what the reality is. Okay, so, but nothing, let me tell you, nothing elicits the kind of hyperbolic anger and hyperbolic response than when you talk about the debt. And this is why I say the thing that's so bad about this is because when I see the reaction, and not just the level of anger and vitriol, but just the volume of reaction. Like, I've gotten so many emails because of that street.com article. It shows to me that we are very, very close in this country to the point in time when we will see a balanced budget amendment passed to the Constitution, and that will be the beginning of the end. I'm telling you that right now. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, as punishment, it will be a very, very terrible thing for so many people who now advocate for this. Okay, they're going to be the ones who are most hurt. The rich are not going to be hurt by this. Okay, but the middle class and the poor people who think that, hey, this is what we need, they're going to be very, very, very hurt from this. But anyway, let me go over it again. I mean, if I can convince one person, then I guess it's worthwhile. This is just a video. It's costing me nothing, right? We have no debt. We have no debt. The 20 trillion outstanding is $20 trillion. That is the sum total of all the dollars the United States government has spent since its inception. Let's call it 1789, Continental Congress. That's 227 years ago. The sum total of all the dollars spent by this country minus all the dollars that were taken away in the form of taxes. So a net 20 trillion is out there in the hands of people, firms, other nations, whatever. So government spent 20 trillion more than it took away. That is 20 trillion that flowed out to people and firms and businesses and other countries, whatever. And those dollars are held in the form of treasuries because people, instead of keeping their money, let's say, in a checking account that doesn't earn interest, they want a little interest. So the government offers people like a savings account, which is a treasury. The treasury is a dollar in a different form. It's just a dollar in the form that it has a term, meaning a duration, could be a month, 3 months, 6 months, 5 year, 10 year, 2 year, right? Where it comes to maturity, and a coupon, which means it gets a little interest payment attached to it. Now, if you want your cash back in your checking account, the government just takes back that treasury and it tells the Fed to credit your bank account with the equivalent amount of cash. That's it. That's what happens all the time. That's how you did the 94 trillion. Nobody said anything about that, okay? But that's what happened. There's no, running out of dollars that you can't pay it back. The United States government is the sovereign monopoly issuer of the US dollar. It could credit bank accounts in dollars to whatever degree it wants. That is not a debt. The only debt, the only, and if we use the term debt, what is a debt? It is a promise, right? Debt is a promise. The only debt, the only promise that the government makes to you is that it will accept its own currency, its own money for the payment of taxes. It says that right on a dollar bill. It says, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. It's written right on there, and it's the public, it's the word public on there that's important. I mean, people, private individuals don't have to take dollars. I might want to sell something and I say, no, I want you to pay me in yen, or I want you to pay me in, I don't know, food, a basket of something, some commodity. I don't have to accept dollars. Private people don't have to, but the government has to accept your dollars to satisfy tax liability. It's making that promise to you. That is the debt. That's all it is. It's that promise. There is no burden on our children. There is no burden on our grandchildren. In fact, the burden is if they did not issue a net amount of dollars to the non-government, if they did not have that debt, nobody would have any dollars. Nobody would have the dollars to pay their taxes even. So, but this is a very, very, very frightening thing because it is a basic understanding, all right? It is not something that's so hard to understand. The problem is people conflate this with their own personal situation. You and the state you live in and the company you work for, they are not sovereign currency issuing entities. You do not issue your own money. The state you live in does not issue its own money. The company you work for does not. It's a huge distinction. And some of you throw in these examples. What about Greece? Greece, in case you didn't know, people, all those European countries, they gave up their currency and they switched to the euro, which none of them issue. That happened in 1999, in case you were not aware. I'm just telling you. Okay, so don't conflate the two. Different situation. That's apples and oranges. There is not one nation in the history of the world that had its own currency, which issued its own floating currency, that involuntarily went bankrupt. You may have had some, or one or two, that said, we're just going to decide to not pay. Like Russia did that in 1998 with the debt crisis and with the ruble. They just said, we're not going to make good. And that could happen too here in the United States. We get close to that every year with the debt ceiling. But as far as the debt, the 20 trillion outstanding, there is no debt. Those are dollars. Those are dollars held in the form of government securities, which are dollars. They just have a term and an interest payment. That's it. That's all it is. Sorry, but that is a fact. Don't come back to me with other explanations. That's what it's all about. And I know it makes some of you go hyperbolically crazy, but that's your problem. Ultimately, it will be all of our problems because the mass of people who are totally misinformed on this are going to cause us to do something very, very bad, and that is to ratify a balanced budget amendment and have that pass and become part of the Constitution. That's going to be really bad. Anyway, had to say that. Bye.